Cupertino Planning Commission for May 8th, 2018. Call the meeting to order at 6:45 p.m. Let's have a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's have the roll call.
Commissioner Liu?
Present.
Commissioner Takahashi?
Here.
Commissioner Fung?
Present.
Commissioner Sung?
Here.
Chairman
Paulson.
Paulson, thank you.
Present.
All present, thank you.
Okay, approval of the minutes of April 10th, 2018. Are there any corrections? I noted one. I don't think it recorded that Jennifer Griffin spoke at that meeting, and I think she did. At the last meeting? No? Oh, okay. No, then I'm stand corrected. Okay. Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Okay. Let's have a vote. And it passes unanimously. Okay. Any postponements?
None.
Okay. Oral communications? Anyone wanting to speak on an item not on the agenda? I see no cards. Okay. Moving along, any written communications?
We do not.
Okay, we are moving along. Consent calendar, any consent calendar?
No items.
Continuing to move along. Okay. Public hearings. And this is really the main meat of our meeting. This is to review the 5-year capital improvement program for the city. And we have as our staff Tim Borden, Director of Public Works, and engineer. Yeah.
This is Michael Zimmerman, our Capital Improvement Program Manager.
Okay, great. So let's have a staff presentation about this.
Okay, thank you. Tim Borden, Director of Public Works. We took the program CIP to the Parks and Rec Commission last Thursday, and I'd be happy to report that tonight there's one more person in the audience than last Thursday. So this is, we're going to talk about the capital improvement plan tonight, which is our annual spending plan for the city's facilities and infrastructure. So I'm going to go through a few slides, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions about, I'm not going to go so much into projects with the presentation, but I'll be glad to answer any questions about projects as we go into it. So this is the 2018-19 to 2022-23 capital improvement program. So it's a 5-year program. However, funding just gets appropriated for the next year. So other projects are shown in the capital program, but they're not funded yet. So every year there is basically a new look at all priorities. Some things that may have been shown in 2019-20, for example, may still get pushed out in the following year. So it's really just a 1-year spending plan, but it does indicate the city's direction on some other programs as well. So tonight we're going to talk about the conformity of that program to the general plan, which is the role of the Planning Commission as dictated by the municipal code. So as I said, the City Council will adopt the 5-year capital improvement program in June, and the Muni Code requires the CIP, the Planning Commission to review the CIP for general plan consistency. We'll talk about some of the, in the Community Vision 2040 goals, some of the elements that can be cited that our projects do fall under fairly neatly under some of these things. Like M2, promote improvements to city streets that safely accommodate all transportation modes and persons of all abilities. So you can look at our capital improvement program and see that there's a lot of bicycle and transportation supporting projects. And so it's not just about cars anymore. We have a well-funded ADA transition plan as well, where we're trying to make it accessible to people with all needs throughout the city. So, so a lot of these elements of the general plan are, I mean, it's very, very easy to see the ties to our capital improvement program. So we do support a safe pedestrian bicycle street network for all ages and abilities. Again, more about safe and efficient pedestrian and bicycle access, effective and efficient use of the city's transportation network, and ensure the city's infrastructure is enhanced and maintained to support development and growth. And so we have been doing a lot of pavement maintenance, as you've probably seen over the last 5 years. We're probably, statewide, we are probably the most improved as far as our pavement condition index over that 5 years as any city in the state. So you know, we're pretty happy with that. It really does save a lot of money down the road, so to speak, because if you wait for those repairs, they become much more expensive. You have to dig out potholes, and it's much easier to do it once you've hit a higher level of the index. Okay, and stormwater, we do have, we are currently working on a new storm drain master plan, but we do have stormwater projects in the plan. So a lot of what I'll just step back for a second. A lot of what you'll see in our capital improvement program is it's grown out of master plans. So the way, you know, we have prioritization and we have criteria on how we develop and prioritize projects, but it's really as we do master plans in the city. So we do the bicycle transportation plan, we do the pedestrian master plan, we do the stormwater plan. All those, as master plans are completed, we like to see projects roll out of those. So they're prioritized in those master plans, and then you'll see a connection in the future years will be funded in the CIP. So, so as we're in the mix of doing a stormwater master plan, a storm drainage master plan, we know some of the higher level projects that are already coming out of there. So we've already begun to fund some of those. We want to create a full range of park and recreational resources and preserve natural resources and distribute parks and open space throughout the community. Good access to those parks. We want to promote the unique character of planning areas and goals for the community. So there is elements where we develop streetscapes that fit in with some of our planning programs within the general plan. And then ensure protection and efficient use of all water resources. As far as environmental review, this is a program, so these aren't individual projects. So projects will conduct individual project level environmental analysis as they are designed. Most of these projects are not designed yet, so as they go through their design process, there will be environmental review conducted for these projects. This budget action doesn't involve any approval of specific projects, so there's no significant effect on the environment. So the recommendation tonight would be adopt the draft resolution finding the CIP in conformance to the general plan. And that's the end of the presentation. Like I said, I realize it's a fairly simple mission to find the CIP in conformance to the general plan. So I am happy to talk about any of the projects that Eric's laid it out well for you in the staff report. This shows the connection of all the new projects to these elements of the general plan. So either Michael or myself, we can address any questions that you may have.
Any questions, commissioners?
I'll go ahead and start with a few here, Tim. Thanks for the presentation and the document. It's all very logically laid out. And just to start out, in your cover letter, towards the end of your cover letter, you talked about 3 projects that have been moved to the defunded lists. And I was wondering if you could say a few words about each of those. I think they were recommended for funding in the FY18 CIP, but now it's moving to unfunded status.
Sure, sure, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So let me just get some here.
I'll be sending you all over the document here, so.
Yeah. So the traffic signal, Foothill I-280 southbound off-ramp, that was placed in there actually a couple of years ago as the county was doing their countywide expressway plan, and they were prioritizing. They had there was tier 1 projects, tier 2 projects within that expressway plan, and they were saying that if there was a local match, basically if a city would provide some match dollars, that would increase the criteria to be funded into tier 1. So this one was actually not put into tier 1 for other reasons, and so now we're just pulling that 100,000 out. We may wish to put it back in sometime in the future when it rolls up, but for right now we'll take that out.
Okay.
The Stockelmeyer House.
Can I just ask a question on that that specific one? So this was a light that was going to meter traffic coming off of 280 southbound onto Foothill?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has there been this little tangent, but it's been on my mind for like a decade. Yeah. That area is tricky because of jurisdiction, Caltrans versus Los Altos versus Cupertino, and it always has been tricky. So, but I've and a number of other people have raised a lot of bicycle safety concerns with that specific area, primarily the Foothill traffic heading uphill, which is southbound Foothill, I believe, under the overpass, and there's a conflict area, and it's always been very problematic to get either Cupertino or Los Altos or Caltrans to appropriately stripe that conflict zone, and it's still not. And I just want to point that out as it would be great if it was difficult because David was this was brought up on Bike Ped years and years ago, but because of it's Los Altos and then them saying, well, no, it's Caltrans, and it just seems like it's a project that desperately needs and it's green paint that needs to be done, but nobody can get it done, and so I'm just pleading.
Okay, no, I appreciate that because I know you've brought that up before, Commissioner Takahashi. So I will. David and I will try and work with Los Altos.
That would be fantastic.
And the county and see what we can do.
It's a very high traffic bike traffic area.
Now that we have a fairly simple tool with the green paint to make those conflict zones known.
Put a little sign up, compliments Cupertino.
Right, right. There you go. So yeah, I appreciate that, and we will pursue that.
All right, thank you.
Well, as a Bike Ped Commission and a Parks and Rec Commission alumnus, I think there may be some other creative solutions that are longer term that would involve Union Pacific, Caltrans, and it is a multi-jurisdictional nightmare right there. Yeah, right. But there is opportunity, I think. Once we maybe begin to get the Union Pacific at the table for some of the park stuff, that maybe there's some opportunity to look at some real innovative design there.
Very good. The second item, I think there was a typo here, but it's Stockelmeyer House. It says same location, which is obviously not the case. What was coming out on the Stockelmeyer House is the sanitary sewer lateral, I believe. Yeah. So a couple of years ago, Rotary had a project where they were going to renovate the Stockelmeyer House. And as part of our agreement that draft agreement that we had worked on with Rotary, the city's portion of that was to bring the sanitary, which is currently on the septic tank, bring it out to Stevens Creek Boulevard. So we had that in the budget. And Rotary's no longer pursuing that. So we're bringing that out for right now. And then lastly, the storm drain improvements on Byrne Avenue, and it's really from San Fernando down to Stevens Creek Boulevard. That was included in our old storm drain master plan. We did build the portion from of the Byrne Avenue storm drain about 3 years ago that goes from McClellan to San Fernando, and it turned out that it's really mission accomplished. I mean, we really took care of the main flooding problem that we had with that project. So while we may come back in the future with this project that continues it down to Stevens Creek, we don't see that as a high priority at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll just ask one more, and then I'll yield the floor to my colleagues. In that same neighborhood, I think on page 41, that's the sidewalk improvement around Orange and Burn. First, I think there's a typographical error. The developer in Luffy isn't included in the overall sum, so I don't know if it's not supposed to be there or just an addition error. And then I was just wondering how that project is going overall. I live in that neighborhood. I do see the sidewalks appearing. It's just great because it's a very heavily used conduit for the students walking to Lincoln and Kennedy in the morning. But yeah, so if you could address whether or not that's a typo or the summing, and then the status of that project, please.
Yeah, so good catch on not including the developer in Luffy, so we'll include that. The project is actually going very well. We're not getting all the property that we need, but we're getting a lot of it. So you'll have a lot more continuous sidewalk rather than the patchwork that we have out there today, that we just get by happenstance of who comes in to develop their house. So what we've gone out with is a program where if folks are willing to dedicate the necessary right-of-way, then we, the city, will fund the sidewalk improvements. And then when they come to in the future to develop, they won't have to reimburse us, which they would have prior to our code amendment a couple of years ago. So that's really our incentive, to try and acquire enough property so we have mostly continuous sidewalk there.
Right.
So that project is moving very well.
Are you offering this to residents only on one side? I've noticed on Orange, for instance, it seems like most of the new sidewalk construction is on the east side of Orange rather than the west. Is this this sort of program available to residents on both sides? You just happen to have more east side folks? So
what the sidewalk that you've seen so far has been completed in the old-fashioned way, where it is the property owners that are building that sidewalk. So what this project is the city will come in and build the sidewalk, and we'll pay for it in exchange for folks that donate their property.
Right. Okay.
So actually, Pasadena was our first success where we did that and completed the sidewalk on Pasadena, and now we're following on with the same offer really for the undeveloped properties without sidewalk on Orange and Burn.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tim.
So are property owners approached for that? How do people find out?
Yeah, so we've had
Actually,
neighborhood meetings
okay.
where we describe the deal, and it's a voluntary program,
Sure,
but we make sure that we're very clear on what the benefits of signing on to the agreement are, and then if they have no thoughts of ever developing, well then maybe it's not for them.
Right.
But we are having pretty good success at acquiring
right.
that property.
Thanks.
Other questions?
So I had reviewed the document earlier and had sent a list of questions over to Director Borden, who sent me responses. I think just for the record, there were a couple of those I wanted to just touch on. One of them was there's a section which reviews some special revenue funds, and then included in that list a transportation fund. But what was, I guess, omitted from the list because it hasn't collected any money yet was there's a new traffic impact fee. That's a new program that was passed last year, and hopefully I captured that correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that will be something that will, I believe that the projects there are more outward focused. The road work that's, a contribution to road work that may not be city roads.
Correct. So yeah, we appreciate you pointing that out. So we will list that as one of the different funds that would, in the future, fund some of our transportation infrastructure. Really, the intent with that fee is it would pay for projects that wouldn't typically be done as part of any single development. They're usually larger projects. Some of the larger projects, even in our bicycle plan, are 280 Wolf Road interchange. So really, those are all in the calculation of what that fee is, but that will be pointed out individually in the CFO.
And I think it's particularly important the initiation of the traffic impact fee and actually the new the updates to the affordable housing fee. Those are actually part of the mitigations that are called out in the general plan. So as part of that update. So it's good just to show that we're, the progress is happening there. Another one that I wanted to just touch on was the, maybe I'll let you talk about the inclusive play area write-up.
Oh, okay.
Sure. So the inclusive play area, we actually had that in the budget last year. I believe it was $30,000 to do a study that really we didn't have a place in mind of where this would go, but we wanted to do a feasibility study so that we would have that part of the project completed in order to compete for county funds that were at that time being offered as grants throughout the county. We were not able to get funding through the county grants. However, we anticipate there will be additional rounds in the future. So having this available will still be beneficial someday because there is a lot of grant money in this arena right now.
This is something that I was involved with at the end of the time when I was on the Parks and Rec Commission, but inclusive play areas are playgrounds that are designed for access to all, and there's an amazing example of that in Palo Alto, the Magical Bridge. Yeah. There was an effort to try to get additional Magical Bridge sites around the county, and that was supported by the county supervisors put together a $10 million matching fund. Unfortunately, a lot of those have been taken, so there's only a couple districts left that have money.
We have something really special that Palo Alto doesn't have, though, and that is adjacent to their inclusive playground, there's a channelized concrete creek. But our creek has a wheelchair trail going right down into the water. just thought I'd point that out.
And then I think the other comment that I had was related to the sidewalk program, but I believe we've covered that already. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sun.
Yeah. A few questions. One is about Stockmere House, the project. You just mentioned it's the kind of a deal with the Rotary Club. I just want to make a disclaimer. I'm a Rotary Club. Is there a conflict interest when I raise the question, or is it's okay? We just open.
No, because there isn't any currently any deal on the table.
Yeah.
There was the idea that Rotary was going to renovate the house for uses for meetings and such, and that is no longer occurring. And so really our only action here is to remove the sanitary sewer project from our capital improvement program.
So by my understanding is if any time it's a Rotary retake the project to renovation of a Stockmere House, the storage the project on our side is going to reinstall it?
Thank you. So is your question if in the future the Rotary Club were to seek to fund the project or take it over for the city, whether you would be conflicted out in making a decision on that item?
Yeah, similar is my understanding is there's no concrete or decision from Rotary Club whether it's a Stockmere is the continue to build or not build. So far it's similar like a pending or it's working with the city. I don't know what's the exact status, but for this part it's we just assume there is no project ongoing. Is that true?
So it sounds like that's what the Public Works Director is saying, and on that basis, I don't think you're conflicted out in weighing on this item. There may be something that comes up, and I'll be happy to advise you independently.
Yeah, okay, thank you. The other issue is because the general plan, when we dealing with the community, we got a lot of input from the community. For each year, CIP, do we go through any form of a community outreach or get some feedback from the community? So let them to reveal what's this year, what we are going to do, and what's the outreach, the procedure generally so you do?
Yeah, it is really through the master plans that drive our CIP, like I talked about. So through the development of all those master plans, there's a lot of community outreach. our bicycle transportation plan, for example. So with that plan, there's the community outreach, and there are most all of our master plans have tiers of projects that are prioritized through those plans. They in turn come into the capital improvement program and are prioritized based on how they are prioritized in the master plan. So we don't do an outreach necessarily just on our capital improvement program, but on all of the master plans that drive our capital improvement plan, they do.
Okay, thank you. The third one is regarding the wharf and the homestead area, because Apple's new campus just finished. So any prediction or any feedback from the after employees of Apple's move in, any traffic situation, is there any way we can get some updated or any prediction, any trouble there?
Nothing that's come up so far. There's a few things that we're watching, like on Tantau. We're looking at how their Apple's bus circulation works with the different other modes, whether it's vehicles, cars, bikes. So we're watching things for sure, but nothing has surprised us yet. So there was a lot of mitigations that Apple completed around their campus. So far, they're working, but not all the employees have moved in yet. So we'll be watching that for some, for vehicular cut-throughs and parking in neighborhoods. We did collect money from Apple to do base level counts and then after project counts to see if there's anything that we need to do in those neighborhoods, mostly in Sunnyvale and Santa Clara. So we're watching that, but again, no surprises yet.
Thank you. The last
Can I just
question.
follow up? Real quick question.
go ahead.
What's the % occupancy at this point in time for AC2? Do you guys have any?
I'm not sure. Do you know, Ben? Okay. My understanding is that they'll be fully occupied in the beginning of the next calendar year.
Okay. Last question is in very general. So for category 4 and 5, those the undefunded, the project. What's the procedure? They just go over again for the next fiscal year to revive, if revived. What's the procedure to get them back to the track?
It's to get feedback either from the community or from if for example there's some things that are on there on the unfunded list that will be picked up as priority projects by the citywide parks master plan. So we know that. So those would obviously come forward as that's completed, and there are suggestions within that document to prioritize them. What the unfunded list is, it's really a parking lot for projects that so we can show that there was consideration. They're not going away. There may be consideration in the future, but it's really waiting for some focus on a specific park or an area where that project can come forward, and we already have some basis of information on that project already.
Okay. Thank you. The last question I raised because Stockmere House, the project, I'm not fully heard from Rotary Club those side stories. So it's from now on to until the June 5th, the City Council's meeting. So it's maybe I can get more people's feedback. So maybe coming back to reflect on the City Council's meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah. Quick ones. In attachment 4, page 1, item 3, Carmen Road pedestrian bike bridge study. So there's a typo in the second column. Then it says Carment, so that's minor. But so this is a study just to understand the feasibility of providing a bridge at that location versus say where the trail comes in a few hundred meters away. What's the rationale behind this particular study?
So this alignment is shown in the bicycle transportation plan, and there are Walk by Cupertino has been involved with some parents of elementary schools in those
Going to
areas
Stevens Creek.
that really see that need. Whether the alignment is at Carmen Road or down below at where the Stevens Creek Trail is, that's a question that would come out. I mean, I think that we want to do this feasibility study to determine what the cost of that bridge structure, what the community acceptance for that location would be. And so once we go through that process, if we find that it is really an acceptable project from the community, that the cost is reasonable, then that alignment may be.
And just curious,
Yeah.
this is just for my own knowledge. What's the ratio of cost between a pedestrian tunnel versus a bridge? Is it 10 times more expensive, or is it just curious?
Well, it depends on a lot of things. So if you did a tunnel down by the golf course, where the trail comes out there, it's a low spot, so the water table's high. There's a lot of utilities in Stevens Creek Boulevard. So it really depends on the conditions. But so I don't really have a
I was just curious
ratio.
if there's a general. Okay.
Yeah. But I think that going forward, that if Carmen Road turns out to not be acceptable to the community, then we will be looking at whether we go over under what the best access would be there.
Only other question is item 6. It's again, there's just another typo where in column 1 or column 2 it's Blaney, and column 2 or 3 it's Bandley. I assume it's Blaney since.
It's actually Bandley.
Bandley.
Yeah,
Bandley
it
and
is
Stevens
Bandley.
Creek. Okay.
Name those streets.
Thank you.
And it's just the enhancement of the signal to accommodate better pedestrian.
Right. It's the phasing so that they have a protected phase.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Takahashi, you asked about percentage estimated movement. So according to our building division, it's approximately 80% move in for the new Apple Park. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah.
Just 2 more quick ones. One, the library expansion. So I know that's currently on the unfunded list. So are we waiting essentially for developer contributions to come in?
That's exactly it. It's the Hamptons project has made a commitment for funding for at least a portion of that project. So once that comes in, then I think that would activate that project moving forward.
And so the intent then would be to go to council to see if they can allocate the remainder of what's needed.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And then just real quick, there's I think on page 11, there's something about an aquatic habitat at McClellan Ranch, and it talks about being open to classrooms. I was just wondering, was the intent to also make that available to the public, or is it more sort of, just classroom use only type of thing?
No, I believe it would be available to the public as well.
Okay.
It may have some access limitations to it during non-working hours, just to protect the animals that are in there. It's really, it's supposed to be for turtles is the main thing.
So. No, it's turning into quite a zoo, and there's a nice insect collection there. My kids love going there, just for kicks. It's really nice. It's a nice little zoo we have there.
Good.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to comment. I'd actually put a note in my thing that looked really cool.
Good.
So it looked really interesting, and if it were outdoor, it would probably be a raccoon feeding.
It probably would.
There you go. Commissioner Sun, sir, one more.
One more last small issue regarding the monument sign on the Dianza and Stephen Creek. So it's it's take away from the funding. It's not much money, but if we can put the better sign and the standard and the modern sign, when people drive through Cupertino, it's going to look much better. So far, the sign looks pretty old, very traditional, brick. Those, I just want to get some sense. It's whether it's from city side. What's your the reasoning why it's take off this is only a small amount of money, but they didn't upgrade the sign.
I'm sorry, for the sign at Stevens Creek and Dianza.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we could look at that and see, you know, what other possibilities excuse me, are there.
Yeah, from my understanding, I just want to know if the money is now required a lot, and for this particular two signs on this major street of Cupertino, maybe we can just put back, or I don't know what's the procedure, but it's definitely going to show people Cupertino is a modern city and
Well, Commissioner
kind of,
Fung and
welcome
I,
people to come to our city.
Commissioner Fung and I believe were on the Parks and Rec Commission when we had a lengthy discussion about sign design. Maybe that was more for parks and
Different, yeah.
facilities than entrance signs.
Which are also in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Don, you have to just run your car into the existing sign. You know what to do in there. Actually, I don't know.
Strike that from the minutes.
Yeah. I don't know whether we can add that as a comment from the Planning Commission that we could talk about it.
We'd be here till midnight talking about details of sign aesthetics. I don't know what
Oh,
the best way.
That's not
Oh,
a
no,
thing.
that's
Just
not-
just that we would like to see that prioritized higher.
Oh, okay.
We
All right.
make a recommendation to prioritize.
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
this is the big sign, not the park signs.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Can do that. But yeah,
Okay.
we'll pass that on.
Other questions? Okay. I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions.
Sure.
First, I don't know if you know this, Mr. Borden, but our commission had and our staff had a new appreciation of public works when we went to a planning commissioners academy training, and first night we had no water, and a couple days later we had no power, and we were finding our rooms with our iPhones. So we really appreciate public works. And second general comment is, you know, in the 32 years I've been here, I've kind of gone from an impatient young man to maybe a little more patience, and I really reflect a lot on Leo Tolstoy's quote, where he says the two greatest warriors are these: time and patience. And public works is one of those things that takes a lot of time to go through the planning, the funding pipeline, and the construction. But it's really fun to see things actually changing and improving. And I commend you and your staff for doing a great job.
Thank you very much.
A couple of general comments. I don't know, when you got your engineering license, you probably didn't think you were going to go into real estate that much, but there are a lot of real estate issues, you know, with sidewalks and things. And I just was wondering, this came up at a council meeting, I think, once, about the idea that if an owner is reluctant to sell his or her slice of land where a sidewalk might go or a trail, that the city purchase a first right of refusal to that property. So in the event that it is eventually sold, the city could buy the property, carve off the desired slice, and then resell it, probably at a handsome profit. So I don't know if that's part of our overall long-term strategy for these problematic little barriers that we find.
I think on a case-by-case basis, would be open to working with any property owner that would be willing to do so. I mean, there is ways you can do that. People can set up a life estate where they're able to live on the property and you know, until they pass, and then a portion or all of it could be carved out for the local entity. So yeah, on a case-by-case basis, would be happy to work with people.
Yeah. I had a 2-hour coffee with the outgoing, retired general manager of the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District. So I was a planner when he was the acquisition manager, and he was the most brilliant acquirer of land. He cut his teeth buying the 85 highway right-of-way. And he would talked about using, like you said, life estates and various mechanisms to eventually extend Stevens Creek Trail, you know, both upstream and downstream from the planning area. That's kind of a long-term thing. And you and I talked on the phone a little bit about street light warmth frequency and the good work you're doing with stormwater containment. But I had one general comment about the trails generally and other things, traffic calming, and that is that a lot of times people are hesitant to accept something like a trail behind their back fence. But it's almost always the case that after the trail is built, the little gate goes into the back fence, the property value goes up, they use the trail and they really appreciate it. So you're in a tight spot politically because you find a lot of neighbors don't want to do something that you know from your professional experience is something they'll eventually appreciate and enjoy. So I don't know, it's just a hard one. It's like you said, it's a case-by-case basis. I think public outreach is important. Do you have any sort of thoughts on that conundrum?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so we are really in the throes of doing a lot of community outreach on major trail segments in Cupertino right now, what we call the Cupertino Loop. So it's the Regnart Trail, right here behind City Hall, and that goes all the way over to Cupertino High. It's the Junipero Serra Trail over behind Valco over in Apple. And then it's also the Union Pacific Trail that we're kicking off that study as well. So so there's a lot going on. We are doing lots and lots of outreach, community events to get input. And yeah, well like the Regnart Trail is a good example where there are a lot of privacy issues, and we want to respect that in the design. So getting all of the input from all stakeholders, those that live right next to it, those that will be using it heavily, get a good balance of that. Take as much of the privacy issues into our design as possible, and then ultimately, it'll be a council decision as to whether to move forward or not. But touching every element of the community and everyone that will have some use of that trail is important.
I think you're doing it right, and I commend you on that. Years ago, as chair of the Bike Ped Commission, I chaired a joint hearing of the Parks and Rec Commission and the Bike Ped Commission to address the Regnard Creek Trail as it was proposed. And there was a huge amount of public opposition. We really hadn't done our homework. And I commend you and your staff for doing that homework, because I think that will result in success. Again, time and patience sometimes is the order of the day with that. So any more questions or comments or thoughts? Okay. Do we have a resolution then that we, go ahead.
I don't know if you have
public comments?
comment.
I don't have any cards from the
cards out.
public, so I guess no public comments. Any commissioner discussion? Okay. Is there a motion, a proposal a resolution that we
Before
vote on?
resolution, I just want to emphasize it's for the centerpiece is the island, the street sign. Anyways, you have some comment because it's can we add it to the recommendation? I want to hear my colleagues some comment.
Yeah, I would support a recommendation to at least investigate or assess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would also. I was actually there when the car ran into the other sign. I was kind of hoping we get a new sign out of it, but the new sign looks kind of like the old sign. You did your best. I appreciate how much it looked like the old sign. So I would support that recommendation also. Because I noticed the appropriations for the park signs was actually a lot more than the city, sort of those entrance signs. And so, yeah, I think it'd be nice to sort of, pride in the city and all that. So.
Okay. So we have two findings on the table. One is find that the projects are exempt from CEQA, and the second finding is that the 5-year CIP conforms to the general plan with, I guess, the added suggestion that we look at the city entrance signs in the future. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion? Well, I'll make a motion.
I'll give this a try. So I move that we adopt the attached resolution, finding that the capital improvement plan fiscal year 18-19 to 22-23 to be consistent with the Cupertino general plan, and that this action is exempt from CEQA. With the additional finding, we recommend basically spending a little more, having a nicer sort of sign for the city entrance.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Okay. And all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay. Is there any old business?
Nope.
Okay. Any new business?
Nope.
Okay. Staff and commission reports?
No staff reports.
Okay. In that case, I will adjourn the meeting at 7:30. Oh, sorry, I spoke too soon. Take that back. Go ahead.
Just so that I think we had put a request in for an item to be agendized in the future to talk about how we handle group cards and things like that. I just suggest that we, it's not on the agenda this time, so we can't do that. But
the speaker's
at the
time
next-
okay, all right.
at the next opportunity.
There was a document sent out about
Yeah.
possibilities.
Let's agendize that.
Yeah, if we can.
Okay, all right.
I think that, it actually, we had the kind of reminder here, because the section from the municipal code with our definition, if we make a policy change like that, then we need to submit it and have it sent to the
Yeah.
council. So,
Okay.
so I think we do need to agendize. If we do that, for a future,
Okay.
future meeting.
Adjournment, take two. Anything else? Okay. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. And thank you both from Public Works for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.